They go where other people choose not to go. Apprehended people go to God-forsaken places and God-forsaken people in the confidence that once they arrive there, those people and those places will be God-forsaken no more. I say to you in love, if you are comfortable with your religion, there's something wrong with your religion. The Christian faith, over and over again, moves us, as Jesus moved those disciples, from our comfort zones into those places that require courage and daring and adventure. When I was in seminary a long time ago, I was a lost soul. Now, you know, when you decide to go to seminary, you're supposed to be found. The job of the seminary is not to find you, it's to take you in your found condition and give you some direction, some strategies, some information to work with. I was there because I was lost. One of my professors became not only a role model, but a Christ figure. His name was Ernie Bruder. He drove up to Maryland, where the seminary was located, from Washington, D.C. That was his home, that was his place of work. He was the Protestant chaplain for St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C., a mental hospital. 5,000 patients there. Ernie was different from my other professors, and he drew me like a magnet. He wore a little mustache, clerical collar. He was Episcopalian, you see. He smoked cigarettes relentlessly, drank booze of all descriptions when he had a chance, swore like a sailor when something riled him, and enjoyed an off-color story with the best of them. He was different from my other professors. Maybe I was drawn by the fact that he had my mother's intelligence and sensitivity, but he also had my father's earthiness and honesty. He only taught 2 courses at the seminary. I took both of those, and that wasn't enough. He offered a 12-week course in clinical training, they called it. I went to Washington, took the 12 weeks. That wasn't enough, so I signed up for a full-year internship at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. I was there under false pretenses. I didn't care about the mentally ill. I just wanted to be near Ernie. I'll never forget, in one of his sermons on the very story that I'm dealing with this morning, he said, still today, 2,000 years after the time of Jesus, we still consign our mentally ill to tombs without the benefit, without the decency of a funeral. And when I think of those words, I think of our scarred, brave veterans coming home. God help them. All I had when I went to visit on those wards in that huge mental hospital were a little badge that reminded me who I was and a set of keys. And once that door locked behind me and I stood on that ward with sometimes 50, 75 mentally ill people who would spend the rest of their lives in that institution, I had no theology to cope with that. I felt myself to be like the disciples of old, naked in their presence, incompetent, out of my depth, and lost. But let me go on to say that year was probably the most painful, the most challenging, and the most rewarding year of my life. I give thanks to God for a gospel that pushes us beyond our safety zones, our comfort zones. that apprehends us, that seizes us from this and directs us to that. That over and over again impels us toward the God-forsaken places and the God-forsaken people. Because once we go there, you and I, in the name of God, those people and those places are not God-forsaken anymore. The demoniac is our brother. You may not agree with that at first, but he is. I don't think I believed in demons in the early years of my life, but they run all through the Bible, as you know. Martin Luther believed in demons. Do you remember the song, the hymn that we sang earlier? And though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear. For God hath willed his truth to triumph through us. And all of a sudden I have goosebumps from a man who believed in demons. If you remember Scott Peck, I don't know that he's writing anymore. He's written a number of books. A psychiatrist who in his later years became a Christian. He testifies that on at least 4 occasions, he, a trained psychiatrist, witnessed people who were demon-possessed being exorcised. But my belief in demons was most influenced, I suppose, by Paul Tillich, famous theologian, who talked about his demons coming to him, especially in the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden I was hooked. I knew that the demoniac was my brother. I've shared this with you, some of you, before. I used to have a tough time in the early hours of Sunday morning. That's when I was scheduled to preach. That's not an easy task. I don't know about Ken and Dan, but it's not an easy task. Just think of it. You're supposed to stand up in front of a group of people, knowing all of your frailties and sins and weaknesses, and have the audacity to say, "Thus saith the Lord." Well, on the very night, in the very hours when I most needed my sleep so that I could be sharp and peppery, I would be tossing and turning. My demons would come to visit. And their message, their voices, always gave the same criticism. You are a fraud. You are an imposter. What makes you think you have a right to stand up there and speak in the name of the Lord to all those waiting?